If you've been tuned into the COPs of the past few years, COP26 and on back, at least to COP21, you're familiar with something called the nationally determined contributions. These are the commitments that countries have been asked and have made around, obviously, meeting what's now known as the Paris Agreement. And we're going to talk here about a little bit of a twist on that, called the corporate determined contributions, a concept that I believe came out of the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. And here to talk about that first is Bill Sisson, who's the Executive Director of WBCSD, World Business Council, in North America. Ellis Jones, who's the Vice President and Chief Sustainability Officer at GoodYears, company you all know and hopefully love. And finally, Amy Lures, who's the Global Lead of Sustainability Science at Microsoft. So welcome to all of you.
Thank you.
Bill, let's just get right into it.
Sure.
What's CDC?
Okay.
No, not that CDC, the Corporate Determined Contribution.
Yeah, not that CDC, exactly. That's got everybody wearing masks right now. CDCs, really, we're at a moment. We're at that moment that started in Paris, found its way to Glasgow, where there's a recognition that business needs to be more involved and represented in the climate accounting agenda. Businesses, great businesses, right? Microsoft, GoodYears, all the companies represented in this room are doing everything they can to reduce, to eliminate, and to report their emissions. That's all great, but we need that accounting to roll up at the global level. So what we need to do is create a mechanism, not WBCSD, but we need to be part of creating a mechanism that helps us do that aggregate accounting that's consistent, that's credible, that's comparable, the great 3 Cs that we need to get. One more point. We believe what that does is it brings the 54% of the 1,000 companies that are not currently reporting up into that scheme. And that's the key. We need that global reporting mechanism, not owned by WBCSD, but owned by COP, by the UN, to really be the driving agenda.
So how does a CDC, Corporate Determined Contribution, differ from a science-based target?
So you have to look at that back to the 3 Cs I mentioned. In my world, we're not changing the mechanisms that are already out there. We just need to draw those up into the reporting framework that needs to exist. And that framework needs to be in harmony with what you mentioned, that NDC framework. So it's got to be consistent to be able to do that accounting. Look, can I say one more thing? Rich Matheson yesterday gave us a great sort of a way to think about this. If we had a financial system that said we're going to meet a goal by 2050, and no way to know what the finance mechanisms were that were being reported today to get there, we wouldn't have a global economy. It would be like you knowing how much money you have, but your bank not knowing what you have, right? So,
okay, I'm still trying to get this, and maybe Ellis, you can help us because GoodYears signed on to this. A science-based target is, as I understand it, is what's the company's fair share of the Paris Agreement, right, which is about nationally determined contributions. So how is this? What is GoodYears doing? Why did you do this? And how does?
Well, I see it as, I think about it as a kind of an operations leader. When first we've defined winning. So I think we've defined winning. When we talk about climate, we've defined winning. We know what we're trying to achieve. Now we're aligning the globe around winning. So we're creating this line of sight for everyone that says, okay, here's my contribution to winning for the organization. I see this as the next, we have SBTI. I see this as the next obvious step when we talk about accountability. And corporations, look, we once we set a goal, we want to be held accountable. The thing we want is we want consistent measures across, all players. So the consistency that this could bring helps corporations, one, align to the winning, understand how they're contributing. And the other thing I think it does is if you add the roadmap to getting there, there's still a lot of corporations that don't know how to get there. And the learning that you can get from seeing everyone on the same kind of measurement scale, everyone understanding how it's being accomplished, helps others who don't know how to get there, helps them learn how to get there. So I see it as just an obvious next step to that accountability and really hey, that measuring winning, and we are winning, or we're not winning, and here's what we need to do to.
I'm going to make one more attempt at this because I'm still trying to get the answer to that one. Because I have a feeling that there's more than just me wondering about this.
Yeah.
Goodyear has a SBT, a science-based target?
Yes.
And
yes.
how
Well, we are submitting SBTs this year.
Okay.
Yes.
So you will have one
Yes.
This year. How is that different from the corporate determined contribution? Is it?
I don't know if, I don't think it's different. I think what Bill is saying is if you get everyone to submit under the contribution, same methodology, and everyone to submit, and now we all have line of sight to what's going on across the world. I think it gives us a better understanding if we're winning, and how do we close the gaps if we're not winning.
Yeah, great. So Amy, Microsoft isn't yet, at least, or I don't know, part of this, but you announced something on Friday called the Carbon Call that's makes this relevant here. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I think that CDC is a hugely valuable framework for building the carbon accounting accountability system for corporations that we need. But to be able to hold corporations accountable for our climate commitments, we need to solve two key challenges. One is greenhouse gas accounting for corporations is inconsistent, incomplete, and not transparent. But the second is that carbon accounting, which is the foundation of carbon accountability, is unreliable and siloed. And so last week, we joined the Climate Works Foundation and about 20 other organizations to launch the Carbon Call, which is focused on addressing these two challenges. So let me tell you exactly what we're doing in that space. One is we're mobilizing companies to commit to reporting on greenhouse gas emissions as well as removals in an annual way, comprehensively and transparently. And I hope every company in this room signs up for that commitment. But the other piece we're working on is mobilizing resources and actions to develop a reliable and interoperable carbon accounting from product to planet. And let me unpack this second piece a little bit and focus on these two words, reliability and interoperability. I think these two words have to be the pillars of our carbon accountability and our carbon accounting work moving forward. By reliability, I mean accessibility, accuracy, and consistency of the data that underpins our greenhouse gas counting systems. The ultimate source of truth for our carbon counting is the planet. It's the atmosphere. It's our planetary carbon accounting system, which, whether we like it or not, tracks how humanity is spending down our remaining carbon budget. And what do I mean by that? The amount of carbon that greenhouse gases we can emit to the atmosphere before crossing catastrophic climate thresholds. Traditionally, it's been really difficult to connect that planetary truth to what we put in our books, in our carbon accounting in our companies. But that's changing. New data streams, advances in scientific understanding, AI, cloud computing is allowing us to connect those dots in ways that we couldn't before. It's not there today, but we need to accelerate where that's coming, and in a few years, we can get there. We need to make that happen. Let me turn to interoperability. What I mean by interoperability is the ability to exchange information between companies, with corporations, and all the way up to the scientific community that's actually doing this planetary accounting for the planet. The greenhouse gas inventory infrastructure that was established over 20 years ago was not set up to address the carbon accounting challenges that we have today. The carbon accounting challenges we have today, we need to be able to track carbon through products, among companies, across borders, in and out of nature. The carbon accounting structure we're building today is what we need to rely on for us to collectively manage how we are spending the remaining carbon budget, how we are using the limited carbon removal capacity that the planet has given us. The carbon accounting infrastructure that we have today is not prepared to do that. And that's why we launched the Carbon Call, and I hope all of you is to address these two challenges, and I hope all of you companies will sign on, carboncall.org. Please look it up. I hope to
So this is a platform.
not a platform. It's an initiative that is focused on mobilizing companies to actually report annually, comprehensively, and transparently. And that is not done consistently now.
No.
But it's also recognizing that even if we did that as best as we can, it still wouldn't be good enough. And it's not the problem, it's not the fault of any company in this room. It's because we don't have a reliable access to the reliable data that we need to do, and we don't have an interoperable system.
So Bill, talk to me about what's the happy path here. What, certainly in the nonprofit and in the for-profit world to some extent, the theory of change here, that there's now have the consistent, interoperable data, reliable data. What happens as a result?
Well, I think the major happiness outcome is we know the goals we're after on a global scale. We all know what we need to achieve by 2050, by 2030. That's the target, but we don't know in a collective way, are we getting there? So we now are informed, how big is that gap? The happy path is we understand the gap we need to close. That can drive regulation, that can drive business performance, that can drive and accelerate scale and scope. That creates momentum. When we're aware of how much we need to do, today I think, I just go back to the point, this is not saying there's great companies doing great things today that they need to be doing. And that's all for the good of the order. But we don't know in a collective sense, are we actually closing the gap? That's the happiness I see. Let me also just say, we're early in this thinking, right? This is only a few months old from a thought model point of view, but we're that organization we're that collaboration engine that wants to bring the GoodYears, the Microsofts, all the companies that are part of us today and more together around this conversation and work this out. How does it fit into the carbon call? Okay.
So the idea is that you have the consistent, reliable information publicly available in one place, then that will start to drive behavior change in companies, possibly on the policy side as well, maybe on the consumer side. Ellis, on GoodYear, what are you hoping will happen from this, from your business goals perspective?
Yeah, I think and Amy brings up a great point. When you talk about consistency, reliability of data, I mean, I think we're all challenged with that. Think about, your Scope 3 emissions and trying to calculate and the questions around Scope 3 emissions. So if we're going to be, we talked yesterday in my session about, some people still feel, we're outside the business, but we are the business. We are in the business, we are part of the business, and we're integrated with the business. And the more consistent data, the more reliable data, the more auditable the data, the more our leaders feel that this is part of our business. So that's what I hope it brings to it. It brings that, we are part of the business. We are driving and helping drive the business. And the more consistent and reliable your data is, I think the more your leaders feel, okay, this is what we do as a business, and it's not outside of what I do in my business.
So I'm trying to discern from that how much of this is internal change versus external change of reputation or influence.
I think there's a part of both. I mean, we're starting to tie incentives to our progress. So there's a lot of things that occur that inside the business, and then you need to be able to audit and assure outside the business as you go forward. I also think the learning that can come from it. The more consistent we get, the more I can see what Microsoft is doing or see what my competitors are doing, and we're all measuring on the same playing field. And if they are doing better than me, I want to know how they're doing better than me, and I want to catch up to them. So I look at this as just positive, both internally and externally, to be able to reach the goal collectively as a society.
Yeah. Amy, what do you want to see other companies do? I mean, Microsoft is arguably ahead of the pack, having committed to, offset its legacy carbon back to 1975. Clearly, one of the companies we hold up as an icon here. What are you hoping how that will influence others, or what do you specifically draw the connection between what the CDCs and the carbon call with the change you want to see in the world?
Well, one of the, part of the issue of the carbon call and the CDC, I believe, is this collective good. How can we as corporations be leaders in this space? But to be honest, the reliability and interoperability of the carbon accounting system is really important for Microsoft to be able to do our own work. It's really hard to actually look through our whole value chain and even in our operations and to say, how well are we doing? What is the baseline? How do we measure it? I mean, we have such an incredible, huge team of smart people working on this. And we need to be able to put that energy to advancing and solving the problem of the world, not trying to figure out this complex, unreliable carbon accounting system just so that we can check the boxes. We need to work together to solve this problem for the world. And I think if we can streamline and get the effective carbon accounting system, then we don't have to worry about it. We just know it works.
Yeah. I want to turn to sidebar, John, in a second. But Amy, is there a business opportunity for Microsoft here? You have the data platforms, a lot of things that you could deploy here. Is that part of what's going on here?
Well, the carbon call is not a Microsoft thing. We joined together with ClimateWorks and 20 other organizations. We want everybody to sign up to the commitment. And if you want to work on the work streams also to help advance and develop this more reliable and interoperable, we welcome that. Go to carboncall.org, sign up, say you want to join. But this is not about developing any certain platform. It's about all of those who are developing platforms. Let's have them speak together. Let's have them go and get the best data that's available. And you know what? That data that's available is going to improve rapidly over time. And we got to set up those systems so that we can continuously access it.
Okay, John, we have a question from Sidebar.
We do. Do I have a mic? I've got a mic. Okay. Yeah. One question we got is, boards are being asked to sign off on a lot of different things these days when it comes to sustainability and ESG. We've seen a big increase to that in the last 2 years. So we got a question in that says, do the boards at your companies, or Bill, the ones you talk with, do they understand what they're committing to with something like CDC? And how do you communicate that commitment to them?
Bill?
Want to take it? I'm fine to start.
I'll respond to the carbon call. The carbon call, it's not, I think there's a clarity of some of the things you've already signed on to it. I think the two things that are really important there is that don't come out yet in other commitments is the comprehensive and transparent. And those two, I think the annual is also important. I think there are other that is in some other commitments, but those two pieces are really, really critical for us to be able to hold ourselves accountable for these actions, as long as we have this carbon accounting system that's going to work. So that would be what I would add.
Yeah.
I would say the boards that I've interacted with are starting to understand the fiduciary connection because of the questions that are being asked between the commitments the company's making around sustainability and the financial performance of the company. That coming together is happening. For the companies themselves that are already now lined up to do the reporting, to do the reduction, to do the removals that they need to be doing to meet their own objectives, the board should see this as a way to, just like they do with their financial reporting, introduce that information now into this aggregation system that's going to tell us where we are as a global society, but where we as a company fit into the outcome.
Right.
I think boards really understand that relationship, and they're bringing it back to their fiduciary responsibility. We're not, sort of at that end point. We're still in the early point, but that would be how I see things.
So we've got a minute left, so I'm going to ask you each in 20 seconds to talk about, when we meet back here next year, what do you hope to see happen? Or what's the story you want to be able to tell about carbon call, CDCs? Amy, let's start with you.
I hope we have 1,000 companies that have signed up to be part of this carbon call. I hope we have a clear roadmap for how we can work together to build a more reliable and interoperable carbon accounting system.
Ellis?
Yeah, I would say, I know we're just kicking us off, but I would say a better defined roadmap to making it come to reality. I think it will take some time. There will be skepticism. But if we have companies within sectors, maybe one sector, two sector, whatever, but companies aligned within the sector, several sectors to put together a roadmap.
Okay, Bill.
My work. So we're going to be organizing those types of conversation, the bottoms-up conversation of what that's going to look like. I want to come back here a year from now and say, we've fed in to the UNFCCC a framework we think can work, and the UNFCCC has picked it up and said it's going to become part of the global accounting system in harmony with the NDCs that are now in play.
Awesome. Carboncall.org.
Carboncard.org.
WBCSD.org. I guess GoodYear.com, but yeah. Please join me in thanking our panel.